Hi, everyone. My name is Dennis Corsi. I use he or they pronouns. I'm the artistic director of the Fresh Fruit Festival. We are an arts festival in New York City that focuses on developing and presenting queer work. This is our series Up and Coming. This is episode 2. The series focuses on theater makers, up and coming theater makers, helping them figure out the path towards reaching higher levels of success in the industry. Episode 1 was focused on directors, and episode 2, we are talking with stage managers. So we have this group of fantastic stage managers with us today. Before they introduce themselves, I want to mention that you can find out more about participating in the Fresh Fruit Festival at www.freshfruitfestival.com. We'll be accepting submissions for productions for our 2022 series at the end of this year. And also we're a nonprofit that runs on donations. So if you like this content, if you like what we do, please check out our website and you can make a donation through there. All right, so let's meet our panelists. So each of you tell us who you are and a little bit about what your career has been. Let's start with Val.
Hi, I'm Valerie Lau-Kee, and I am a recovering stage manager. I've been a stage manager for years, and I presently work as the producing director at Broadway Cares Equity Fights AIDS. And my last 2 shows on Broadway were Spiderman Turn Off the Dark and Mary Poppins. So I have a lot of flying in my background.
Val, the first Broadway show I ever saw was Mary Poppins in 2008.
Wow.
Yeah,
Love that.
yeah, it was great. Thank you. Let's go with Chris Z.
Hello. Yes, my name is Chris Zaccardi. I am currently a stage manager and also a professor. I teach stage management at Pace University and head the program there. I've been in New York now. It'll be 20 years in November. I moved here right after 9/11 and have been very blessed to keep working. My last Broadway show was Hello, Dolly with Bette Midler. And I'm currently getting ready to, in theory, go into a workshop for a brand new show that will hopefully see life very soon in the future.
Awesome. Sel?
Hi, my name is Saori Yokoo, and then my nickname is Sel. It came from celery because my Saori is a Japanese name. It sounds like sorry. So on the headset, I was confused. Were you apologizing to me or were you saying my name? So I quickly had to come up with this nickname given by my mentor. So that's why I use Sel. I am upcoming Broadway stage manager. I would consider I'm not like I wouldn't say I'm the Broadway stage manager. I guess for the Broadway credit, I was a sub at the Inheritance and I toured a lot and like hashtag Broadway touring productions, I would say. Yeah, and then this year I've been busy. I've been very lucky doing Zoom productions. I was on Zoom for 4 months every day. My eyesight got very bad. I need to get my new glasses. And then I've been back in person working over a month now for various like little small workshops, readings, things that I can't name. They're like in enveloping. But yeah, that's what I'm doing right now. Thank you.
Great, thanks. And Chris M.
My name is Chris. I've been in New York since 2003. I went to NYU and graduated and came out working for various shows as a PA. And my last Broadway show was Head Over Heels in 2018. And since then, I've been working on the Radio City Christmas show. And in between Head Over Heels and Radio City, I went to China with another show I worked on, American in Paris.
Awesome. We have some great people here with us today. I'm excited to hear a bit more about your journeys. So our first question that we have, and anyone can just chime in, is on the journey to where you've gotten to in your career. Has there been a moment or an opportunity, something you said yes to that seems like it was most crucial to getting to you to where you are today?
Is it okay if I start on this one? This
Go
is
ahead.
I I think it's hard also because it's hard to distill it down to a single moment, but I will say that for me, there is a single type of moment that really impacted what I have done in my life. And one of them is indeed having been approached by Broadway Cares to be the calling stage manager for the Easter Bonnet. And it came about because there were other stage managers who were presently with The Lion King, where it was being done on stage, who didn't want to participate with it. And running the line, they came upon me, who had volunteered with Broadway Cares before. And they said, well, she subbed over at Lion King, maybe she'll want to do it. And the answer was yes. Now, mind you, it didn't come, you can say I had imposter syndrome because I'd never called the show. And yet, here I was teching and operating all of their massive scenery. That's a lot of scenery. There's a rock. There's a 2-story rock. So the opportunity arose and I took it, which allowed me to do it again the next year and the following year. And by saying yes and knowing that what I did know was that I was going to be incredibly supported by a pre-existing group of people. And having a relationship with them allowed me to establish a practice of being able to tech a show. And by doing it in an existing structure, by saying yes to an opportunity of working for free, but in a place that was completely supported, I was allowed to expand and try to do something in a scenario that I would otherwise nobody was ever going to pay me to do that. But I got an opportunity to volunteer to do that and got the experience to be able to have it under my belt and have a lot more practice so I wouldn't be battling the imposter syndrome that I had been doing before.
And do you have any suggestions of where people might find those opportunities?
At Broadway Cares. Where I am now. So come to me, write to me. I'm on the other end. I will call you too because Sel knows that. I picked up the phone and said, Sel, can you do something for me, please?
And I fully support what Val said because I've volunteered for Broadway Cares a couple of times whenever I can. And then it's crazy, all the Broadway stage managers are working. And then I remember a stage manager just to open a Broadway show a night before. She went to a party, and then next day she was at the event running a whole thing. I was like, what? You're a super person, like what is going on? But the thing is, it's everyone wants to donate their money for Broadway Cares. It's a good cause. And also I met so many good stage managers there, and I've received job offers in the future. Like, and Val will keep you updated, if anyone's looking for stage managers. I totally think it's like working or volunteering for Broadway Cares is a great opportunity to enhance your career. I just fully support what she said.
Great, thank you. Anybody else have any sort of pivotal moments?
I have a moment that's a little different, but there was definitely a moment in time when I had graduated college a long time ago, and I was interning at Walt Disney World in Orlando, and I decided they had offered me a full-time job that would have moved up into the entertainment management ranks, and I decided to take a job as a production assistant at Coconut Grove Playhouse for $300 a week, taxed in Miami. It was terrible money, but I just took a leap of faith and I went with it. And everything from that moment, I met a lighting designer who introduced me to Donna Lynn, who was the PSM up at Goodspeed, is now the producer. And because of her, she brought me to Connecticut, which brought me back to New York. And because of her, I got my first Broadway show, which was All Shook Up. That's how old I am, which then led to Lestat and then Chorus Line. And eventually I spent 2 years at Wicked. But it's because of that one moment of just deciding, I always thought to myself, I want to work at Disney World. I love it. I don't know if you can see all the Disney posters behind me, but I was going to regret not taking the chance. And so it was that moment that I decided I need to take the chance. I don't want to be 48 and being mad that I didn't take the chance. So I think that's for me. And I think it goes back to like all those, you just say yes, you jump in and get your face out there and do it better than I do.
Thanks.
still learning to say yes. I find it sometimes hard to say yes to things because you want to, you want to be part of a community here in New York, and saying yes sometimes means leaving New York. And a pivotal moment for me was graduating college and deciding to stay in New York. And instead of going to LA, and I had done some work in live events and televised live events, and I really enjoyed it and liked it. And I was told if I come to LA, I could have an opportunity there. But I came to New York, and I wanted to be in New York. So I think that was a pivotal moment for me. But yeah.
All right. So a question we have from John McGee is, what do producers look for in Broadway stage managers, or even just stage managers in general? What kind of education, experience, connections should they be getting to be attractive to producers that are hiring?
Who wants to take that first? I'll speak to as an assistant stage manager. Or even just starting out, I did 5 Broadway shows as a production assistant. I feel like that's a really good way to get to know SM teams and get to know PSMs. And as an assistant or a PA and starting in the Broadway world, the PSM is going to hire you. So I got to know a lot of PSMs via doing PA work, and that was very beneficial for me. I've never personally been hired by a producer, though a producer or general manager is likely to approve that hire.
Yeah.
In my experience.
I think it's also dependent on the office, and different offices want different people for different reasons. And I think if there was a formula we all could crack, we would all be set. But some offices want super aggressive stage managers, some want more laid back, some want, it's hard to, so I worked for many different offices, and then the one office will hire me one time and the next one tell me, no, we don't want you because of A, B, and C. So I think it's a hard question, because I don't know what everyone else thinks, but I think it's really, really dependent on the producer, the office, and the show. I've had the good opportunity to work with 2 very infamous producers now who have been in the news lately, and I know what they wanted were incredibly aggressive, like people who also sort of did what they were told. So I spent too much time working in those offices that I'm very happy I don't have to anymore.
I do concur that it changes from not only from producer to producer, because you might not necessarily come in contact with the producer, but you are more likely to be in contact with the general manager. And therefore, a lot of that is your connection to them, so they know that they have a voice inside the building, and that they also know that they have somebody to rely on, because if something goes south, you need to know when you're going to turn back to them and connect them with the issue that you, and whether there is a certain sense of an understanding of being able to communicate. And it is adversity. In my experience has always ended up being that moment really comes into play when there's adversity. And so being able to communicate through adversity and being able to rely on people is extremely trying when you're under the gun, and it becomes so much more important that you are amenable, that it is smooth, that you are working forward together through things. And so although it may not be something that they're looking for, it certainly doesn't hurt. And I don't know how you would convey that in the process of an interview, but certainly a reassuring presence and a reassuring connection never hurts.
Yeah, makes sense. Sal, it looked like you had something to add.
Yeah. So I've been hired by a producer, like, hey, why don't you hire yourself? But still I have to go through all the whole interview process, and I have to be approved by general management and PSM, of course, because I'll be working with PSM very closely. But I've had two situations, like, the producer's like, hey, can I recommend you for this? And then yet I still have to go through the process. And then the fact the producer, I was like, I had no idea that the producer knew about me. I had no idea, but she was one of the producer for a touring production. And then I've met her a few times, but I don't meet her daily, obviously. But somehow somebody told her how my work ethic to her. And then that really reminded me that, wow, somebody really like is reporting how I'm working. And then that really got me back to New York City, because that producer was producing for shows in New York City. She also does touring. So that, to me, that was a big wow moment. Wow, I really did a good job on the road, and that's why she's placing me back to New York City. That's something I didn't think as a touring stage manager. Yeah, so I just wanted to comment about that. Like, producers really, they acknowledge hard workers even you don't meet the producer every day, which is a fascinating idea to me. And now I know, like, they're really looking for reports from other management people, who's the good worker or not. Yeah.
And it seems like it's a pretty small world in that news gets around fast in terms of who's good to work with and who's not, which is pretty common in the whole industry. But does that seem to be the case with stage management? Yeah, lots of nodding heads. Great.
But I think if I could comment real quick, I think that's also very subjective, because what I may think of someone as difficult, someone else may love.
Sure.
So I think we all gravitate towards people that either have the same sensibility or same sense of humor or way of working, that it's not everyone is going to fit into the same mold. So I think that also plays into it too.
Yeah. All right, did any of you, if you're open to being vulnerable, make any big mistakes career-wise? And what were the lessons that you learned from that?
Can I go first, just because I've been thinking of
Sure.
it since you sent me this? Because I make my students answer questions like this, and I feel like if they're watching, I should answer it. I am no longer on social media for a variety of reasons. This year has been, I think, ridiculous for a lot of us. The election and my very conservative family sort of was attacking my students. And I just sort of separated myself from it. But many years ago, at the height of Broadway World and all that chat, I was working at Wicked, and I posted something from my viewing of the show. I was still relatively young in the business, and I'll never forget posting it. Stephanie Block had been hurt that night and had gone to the hospital, and the people were commenting and making up all this stuff. And I responded. I'm like, no, this is, and I tried to sound not like a stage manager, but we have a tone when we write. And I'll just never forget the next day being summoned to Stephanie's dressing room because she knew it was me, and it was horrible. And I never that was like sort of a trust issue. And it's something I've been very sensitive about since then, not posting things, even before I got rid of the social media, not posting things without giving any names. It was a show I was working on. I didn't move on with it many, many years ago, and it didn't get nominated for Tonys. And all I wrote on Facebook one day was how happy I was, to which a producer friend of mine responded and said, remove that, because I know what you're talking about. So it was those sort of little things I learned, what to say and what not to say. And now, even before I left the Facebook, it was just pictures of puppies and dinner. So that was a big lesson for me about when to keep my mouth shut and where I was in the process. Yeah.
Yeah, social media can be dangerous in so many ways and destructive.
I'll be vulnerable here. I think it's working on Broadway. You actually spend more time in the theater than you do at home. And your personal life gets intertwined with your work life in terms of what happens at home sometimes can be reflected in your work if you're not careful. And for me, that is one of the biggest lessons I keep and continue to learn all the time is where it's safe. There are certain people I call family who I work with, and I know it's safe with them, but sometimes, when you go into sub for another show, it's not always a good idea to be so forthcoming. And it's just knowing your audience is really, really important, especially backstage, even backstage. So I learned a lot about that. So take that for what it's worth.
Thank you.
Well, I'm writing down what Double Chris are saying. I'm just learning here. But for me, because I personally love being a PA. Something about PA that I'm helping everybody, knowing everybody. But a lot of my friends tell me, Sal, you need to like stop PAing. I was like, what does that even mean? So to me, like I can see myself even like 60 years old, if my friends need a PA, I would absolutely go PA physically if I'm capable. But I think it's for me, I'm having a hard time. Like when is the cutoff? When do I stop being a PA? That's the question I'm just questioning myself every day. It's not a big mistake yet, but it could be a big mistake to a lot of young stage managers when you don't move up or you have to like, draw the line. That's the question I'm just still figuring out. So yeah.
I don't know that there's necessarily a catastrophic event that is a mistake. There are plenty of catastrophic events, but I don't know that they're career changing. But certainly there are oftentimes road not taken, and those things can impact your career. And I won't even comment about that because if it's a road not taken, we don't know what the result would have been. But every choice does come with perhaps a missed opportunity. So look at each situation also as whether it is a missed opportunity. And certainly one of those things is when you leave a show. So I know that there are various reasons for leaving a show, and I have two of them in mind that are specific to me, and that is when I first got married and I was out on the road, I decided to come home because that was more important at the moment. So that will forever remain. The road not taken would have been staying with the show and what might have become with my career had I chosen that route. And we'll never know. And the other road not taken was also leaving a show, and this time it was a road taken and leaving the show. When I was at Mary Poppins, I sort of have my own threshold of time I've discovered. The magic number is 4.5. It's like a presidential term, right? When you're in a place long enough that you lose intention about everything you do 8 times a week because it's a long-running show, deeply consider whether it's time to move on, because maybe you should take that road. And we don't all get that choice. Running on a show for that long is a rare occurrence. It is a gift, maybe. And it is something that we don't all have the opportunity to say we had to choose from. I'm blessed. But it is, it's something that we have to recognize in ourselves, that we are part of an industry that is transient. It is special because it is that there's a magic involved in doing it. And 8 times a week has a price. And we have to embrace our best selves in that 8 times a week. And when we don't bring our best selves, maybe it's time to continue the journey.
Oh. Well, that's Val, that seems similar to what Sal was talking about in terms of when is it time to move on to something else. When the work is good, do you really want to leave it? So I'm curious, particularly in the more with Sal's situation with the PA, because I think a lot of people who might be watching this are doing a lot of PA work and maybe hoping to move on to more stage managing, production stage managing. Does anyone have any thoughts about taking that step, moving from PA, when to do that and how?
When you get the contract, when someone hands you a contract, your first contract, you say yes. That's when I did it. I called my first Broadway show on my 30th birthday, on my first Broadway contract, and that was pretty special for me. But it took me 30 years to get there. So it's different for everybody. The journey is different. The roads are different. And you know, to each their own. And, you know, yeah, when you get that contract, that's when you do it.
And did that come from a PA job, Chris? Or how did that contract come?
It did. I was a PA on Warhorse. I got off the ship. I went to work on Warhorse as a PA, and then the following year, one of the stage managers left, and I was able to replace them. I got to do the rehearsals. The recast for the rehearsals, and just came on naturally, and just took that contract and ran with it. Stayed with it till it's closed.
And I think your gut will tell you when it's time. Like you gotta trust that, because that's gonna tell you, all right, it's time to take this contract or move on, or say no to something because you want something else to come from it. And you can't ignore that. I've ignored it in the past too, and then made bad choices. And I always, again, road not taken, but your gut will tell you. And then just follow it. Because if you're happy where you are, especially nowadays, if you're happy where you are, enjoy that. Because this business doesn't always let you be happy. It's a wonderful business, and then but sometimes it becomes work, and when it becomes work, it can be a lot. You sacrifice a lot. So I would say, my advice is always follow your gut. It's going to take you the right place.
We have a very future-oriented question from Miguel Flores, who wants to know, how does a stage manager save for retirement? Is anybody saving for retirement here?
Put what you can into 401k when you have a job.
Yeah.
I'm going to say something that might be controversial. So ready?
Yes, so ready.
Some people work as corporations, especially when they have multiple employers. And as a gig worker, if you're doing a lot of things like picking up a lot of events and you have a boatload of different employers during the course of the year, if you become incorporated, then you are able to, first of all, get paid with no taxes withheld, and you have to deal with that the repercussions of what taxes you have to pay at the end of the year, unless you spend it all. Anyway, so the other thing is, because when you do that, you are able to take a larger chunk of your salary and put it into your 401k before taxes, which we are encumbered and limited to by our own unions. So you can put as much as fiscally possible in when you work for your own union. And sometimes you don't have the luxury to decide how much that is. But if you have the luxury because you are in a partnership or something like that, and you are a two-income household, it becomes an option to be a corporation and then to put more of it into your 401k.
Awesome. Thanks for the tip. I'm glad that somebody asked that, because I think that it's something that, especially as freelancers or artists, we often don't think about that kind of thing. So I'm glad people are thinking about it. What are some roadblocks that you've come against in your career? Any walls or ceilings that you struggled to get past? And then how did you move past them? Or anything that you're struggling with currently that you're trying to get past?
I hope you don't mind me taking this one. You know what? Sometimes those ceilings are self-imposed. Sometimes we bring our own history and our own story and our own place in where we have been to our adult lives. So, speaking as a woman, an Asian woman, it is, I was brought up as the youngest of 5 to make everything move faster and easier by complying. When you have 5 kids and you're shoving them all in the station wagon, the last thing you need is the little one to say, "But I want a cheeseburger." Okay, so what this is you spend an entire lifetime subduing what you think is right or best, or your voice. And everybody else's voice becomes more important, and it becomes the easiest way to facilitate something. sometimes there's a place for that. And I think the hardest thing is to look beyond that self-imposed ceiling to say, I have a voice, I have an idea, and I wish to bring it, and I wish for you to hear me, and assert yourself in a way. Plus, there is that whole Asian woman thing where people are going, well, you know what, she's going to be very submissive, and let's just not put that as a big chair at the table. Which in a point in your career, that's kind of a great thing to not have to take a leadership role. When you choose to do it, mean it. That's part of it. Just when you're ready to, it's fine to do that. It doesn't diminish anyone to assume that role as long as you're okay with it, but don't complain about it. But when you're ready to show up, show up.
Awesome, thank you. Yeah, coming at us with those limiting beliefs that we all have. Yeah, love that. Other thoughts about roadblocks?
Well, I was just gonna sort of echo that. And when you put your own roadblocks in front of you a lot of times. And I came out of the military, went to college, and I'm very much a rules person. I like the contract because it's the rules. And for a while, I was very aggressive about that. And people didn't want to hire me because I would call out certain theaters, general managers on rules. And I would just say, this is the rule, this is what it's going to cost. And I would get in trouble. So then I sort of did a 180 and became too submissive and allowed myself to sort of get run over on a show that really was detrimental to me, more mentally than career-wise. But yeah, I think it was, then I finally told myself, stop it. Just follow, like say it, follow your gut. You know the rules, and if they're going to question it, that's why you have a union, and they agreed to the contract, so that shouldn't be a surprise. So, yeah, I think it's a self-imposed blockade. Nothing that I don't know. You'd have to ask the general managers why they don't like to hire me.
Well, I'm not sure it's related, but when I hear roadblocks, I toured in my 20s. I mean, like, I just turned 30, so I'm not like, I just sounded like, of history. But 20s, when I was touring, I was so jealous with my friends who were working on fabulous shows in New York City. I was like, why am I jealous? I chose to be on the road. I'm not physically there. So it was something. And then a lot of my mentors told me, if you want to work in New York City, you have to be there. And that is correct, I believe, because when my boss is hiring a PA, they're not going to hire a PA who knows, I don't know, Seattle, LA very well, but we can't send that PA to like, hey, just go to the bodega, on CVS. If that PA don't know New York City, easy task becomes very difficult. So to me, I know a lot of my mentors told me, just if you want to work in New York City, be in New York City. If you want to be on the road forever. So that's something, just physically, like finding a location. And I think Chicago has amazing theaters, but if you're jealous, or if you want to do work in New York City, I think you have to make a move at least a year or 2 years to see you like the city. Or can you, do you like taking subways every day? Do you like seeing, like dead mouse every day? Like, can you physically handle this air quality in New York City? I think it's something I always tell. I have some young, like high school students I was talking to, and then I was like, you need to come to New York City at least a week to see you like this place, because New York City looks dreamy on Instagram. It really is not. It's something I always tell, and then it's the worst case is once you move here, not knowing you might not like New York City, you spend all that money moving, apartment hunting, and then you find out you don't like it here, then you shouldn't work in New York City. I don't know if that's related, but I just wanted to bring up. Yeah.
No, that's helpful. Thank you. I think I'd rather see a dead rat than a live rat, though. A dead rat can't do anything. We see both, though. There's plenty of both. So, then the last question here is about paths. I know that with really a lot of things in the theater industry, as a director, I know it's true for directing, there is not a very clear path. Everybody has a different story with how they got to where they got. And it seems almost impossible to replicate anybody else's path. But I do think that it's helpful to hear what other people's sort of progression was. What was their what was their foot in the door, and how did it move them forward? So I'd like to hear from each of you where you started and what maybe some of those major milestones along the way were that got you to where you are.
I'll go first since no one was unmuting. I was waiting to see if someone would unmute first. So this is going to get weirdly personal, but my whole path sort of started when I graduated high school a long time ago in 1991. I started college and realized I wasn't ready to go to school. I was sort of having a lot of doubts about who I was in the South in 91. Being gay wasn't something you did, especially in the country. And so I went into the Marine Corps right out of high school to sort of prove I wasn't gay, which sort of led me to realize that the military teaches you very quickly to respect yourself. So I had to sort of come to the terms very quickly with who I was, which I did. And so when I left the service, I was going to go into film. It's the gayest story ever. And I was, so this is 1996, and I transferred, I was going to Tallahassee Community College because Florida State had a film program. And I randomly came up here and I saw a little show in previews called Rent, which had, in those of us who are of a certain age, like before, this is before the internet, but it was everywhere. It was on the news. And because of Rent, I came out like the next day to my parents, and I came out to everyone I knew. All my buddies who I was living with who were in the Marine Corps was with me. And I decided that could change me so quickly right there. I was like, I want to do this. And the whole reason I'd gone into entertainment to begin with, and this is horrible, I had a roommate in the military who was he was racist and he was anti-Semitic, and we were overseas, and he bought this horrendous shirt. It was like a concert t-shirt about Hitler conquering Germany. And I'll never forget, it was done like a concert t-shirt. It was just disgusting. And I'll never forget, we came back and watched Schindler's List. And I remember him halfway through, this is back with VHS tapes, and very quietly he went over and took the t-shirt out and cleaned his ashtray with it and threw it away because of that movie. And that was like, oh, look what entertainment can do. So I decided if I was going to do this, I was going to do this. So I went to Disney World first, which led, like I said, to Coconut Grove, which is no longer with us. And I was also working at the Broadway Center, and I met touring stage managers, and I made such a point just to get in people's faces and introduce myself. And this is what I was going to do. And that led to meeting Ken Billington, who said I should go work at Goodspeed. And he introduced me to Donna Lynn, which then brought me, since she's been my mentor ever since. And because of Goodspeed, I just fell in love with regional theater. People love New York, and Broadway's awesome. And I've got some amazing Broadway stories, but regional theater for me is, I love it. I love traveling on someone else's dime, but I don't want to tour anymore. I've toured, but I like going to Dallas for a summer or somewhere else. But Goodspeed led me to my first group of Broadway shows, which introduced me to Billy Barnes, who took care of me for many, many years. He took me with him from Chorus Line to, we did Hair together, One Man, Two Governors, Anarchist. I have to look at my posters, 9 to 5, Hello Dolly, Noises Off, and it was all because of Billy. So I was very, very, very lucky. But I also was lucky because I knew when a show ended, not that I was financially able to, I knew I didn't have to move on to another show. I could take time for myself, always went to Disney World at the close of a show, always took a lot of time between, would do something regionally, small things, and eventually move my way back up because, yeah, it was a very, once I decided this is what I wanted, I just made a point. Now I'm at a point in my life, 20 years in New York, I'm like, what's next? I'm old. I don't want to always be in rehearsal. But yeah, I don't know. That's sort of my journey where it went. And it was just putting my face out there. And that time when you would literally knock on stage doors and give letters. My first PA job was moving out because I knocked on the door, and Tom Bartlett brought me in and hired me as a PA, like a rehearsal PA, and then I PA'd for the tour, and then I would cover. That's when, as a sub, you would cover and get paid under the table. I can't believe I'm that guy now. I'm that stage manager saying, back in my day when we got paid under the table, and it wasn't that long ago. Yeah, and it was because of those people who just kept pushing me and pushing me and pushing me. Yeah, that's my story. I think that's a good.
Awesome, thank you. I love hearing when people have such shifts in their lives from seeing a show or seeing a movie. It really does show that what we do is not just entertainment, it's actually powerful. That's awesome. Sel, how about you?
My turn. I've got such a weird story that probably nobody would understand. I grew up in Tokyo, Japan. But I came here for college. I went to school in Ohio. I wanted to work in theater, not sure what I wanted to do. So I did props, A2, costume. I did everything. I loved everything. Meanwhile, during summer break, I was a workaholic then already. I needed a reason to go back home, visit my parents. So I got a job working for producers who take US tour to Tokyo, right? And then so I was everyone's PA. I was helping these producers. I was making a schedule for translators because I understood what theater works and when how many translators needed. I was doing that for 5 times. It was my undergrad summer job working for. So I was very exposed to first national equity tours, like production contract as like junior or freshman in college from Ohio. I was like, oh my God, what is automation? You need 3 stage managers to run the show. I was exposed to a big show. And then I knew I wanted to be a stage manager then. And then during college, just like one of the project, hey, props person, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, hey, Sel, do you want to be a stage manager? And I did stage manage Spelling Bee in junior year. And I loved everything about it. Since then, I've been pursuing to be a stage manager. And then I graduated from school in Ohio. People who I met in Tokyo, they still remembered me because I was, why they remember me who were touring for US company? Because I was organizing Americans' trash, because they didn't see what is plastic, what is aluminum. It's very, very specific in Tokyo, but it's hard, So I was sorting out everyone's trash. So company managers from US, I don't know what tour, they remember me. So let me know if you graduate. We need to make up something for you because you're sorting our garbage, kind of. So those company managers and GM gave me jobs to be a PA for touring productions. And then that led me to go on the road. And then, yeah, I toured in my 20s and then I kind of came back because I think my body was kind of giving up on me a bit. I couldn't sleep in a different Airbnb or hotels anymore, but I still love touring. I would go back in a heartbeat. I think it's a great way to learn how load in and load out. You don't get to really do that in New York City, but we do that weekly or every month. But I thought I learned everything I can learn on a tour. So now I'm back in New York City and I'm trying to send my resume every day. And then I do have projects lined up, but yeah. That's my story. I'm always hustling, always, I'll be sending my resume to Double Chris right here because this is my first time meeting, because I'm young and then, yeah, that's my story. Sending my resume every day.
Great. Thank you. Chris?
Yeah, I do the same thing. I walk my resume down the street and knock on theater doors, and I send my resume via email to stage managers I know, and I write to general managers and send them a paper document. Like I do whatever I can to get my name out there. The theatrical index is a really good source for stuff like that sometimes. And sometimes it's not, outdated. But I started, I needed something to do in high school and I just, theater was it. I graduated high school in 2001 and had a opportunity to work on the Salt Lake City Olympics. And that was my first professional gig. And I was a PA on that show. And I then moved to New York and went to school here in New York. And I knew whatever I had to do, I had to be in New York. That's what I knew. And I graduated and I got to work right away as a PA on Legally Blonde. That was my first PA gig. And it was awesome. It was really, really cool. I was really happy. Things were going great. And then things just felt like they came to a screeching halt, even though they didn't. But you just have this expectation of when you graduate college that things are just going to happen like that, right? And you know, as a youngster, as somebody who's fresh off the boat, as they say, that's not the case all the time. And I ended up taking gigs on like TheaterWorks USA. It was a great way and a great outlet for me. Yeah, it's awesome. Yes, Chris. Yes, I'm totally in agreement. I saw all but 3 states doing TheaterWorks USA, and I had the best time doing children's theater. And I could recommend that to anybody. That's how I got my equity card. Came back to New York. I did a couple of PA gigs, and then left again. I went on a cruise ship and saw the world. I was on a cruise ship for 9 months. I don't recommend that. Don't recommend getting on a cruise ship for 9 months. But came back and I got to work as a PA again. And then you get to a point where you're like, when is this gonna end? And it did. It did end. And actually, at that point, I got to PA on Warhorse and started my career. Things happen, and you take them as they come. You try to say yes, and sometimes you make a mistake and say no. I've been fortunate enough not to be out of work too long in between gigs. Try to find things to do. Try to build a family. Try to build relationships with people. Stay in contact with people. Don't let go of contacts. And things have worked themselves out. I worked on American in Paris and took that to China, and that was an experience. So it's, you know, came back and went to Radio City. So I haven't been on Broadway in a while, but Radio City is fantastic. That was a fantastic place to be. It's lots and lots of people and lots going on, and hopefully after the season at Radio City, maybe I'll get a job on Broadway. Who knows? So we'll see. That's my journey.
All right. Thank you, Chris. And Val?
Wow, I'm way older than everybody. I at my junior year in 1984, I got a job on a national tour and left college. But I got a job as a dancer. So I was a dancer for a year and a half. The show came back to New York and did 6 months at the Broadway Theater. And I knew that I was going to still have an obligation to finish college. So I took a half year and went to school full time at NYU, not in the good part, just in Washington Square College, not the fancy Tisch school part. But I did a full course load while I did the show so that I could graduate on time, and then went back to college. Being on the road is great because I could watch the show loading in, and I learned so much about what it takes to make it happen in commercial theater. And went back to school and decided that I didn't want to dance. I wanted to be a lighting designer. And I applied for grad school, and I got into grad school at the University of Urbana-Champaign in the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. But I had gone to an audition just before graduation, and I actually got that job. So I decided to defer, which became inevitable forever, my graduate degree in stage management and lighting design, and went back to New York and tried to make my life as a dancer on Broadway. No. These are bad choices for Valerie. I learned that. I learned that was a bad choice for me. So I stayed in New York and actually took every other kind of job that I could get. I would still go to auditions because if I could get a job, it would pay, but I did a million other jobs. I was a personal assistant to a writer. I was a model for artists. I did a bunch of things. I worked in a scenic shop. I took on, off-Broadway shows, working props and hair, and I learned so much about the craft of theater, not just stage managing, that it taught me things about stage management that I appreciated later. And finally, I got as a dancer, I'd worked with Susan Stroman, and she needed a dance captain / stage manager. And back in the day, you could do that. And since the actors were all favored nations, somebody who was not an actor had to do it. So I became a stage manager and loved it and never looked back. It was the best and most wonderful thing about all the things that I loved about theater. It gave homage to and respect to all the people who did so many vastly different things in the theater to make it happen. And from there, it became an off-Broadway show that turned into a national tour and another national tour where stage managers could then, at that point, be swings. And trust me, you do not want to see me in a blonde wig again doing Theater Garden. But those were all steps towards being able to come back to New York and be a stage manager in New York. And in the times when there wasn't work, it was you have to do something and wait and hope for that contract that you can continue to work. It won't always be on Broadway. It won't necessarily always be theater. But if you can persevere, and this is the hardest part about the pipeline, it's being able to survive until you can make it to that next contract and work. And that is sometimes the place that we lose people. And particularly, stage managers of color who, because, you can get a bit, you know what? You get paid more working at Popeyes behind the counter nowadays than you do off Broadway. I'm just saying. And it's a trap you don't want to fall into or try not to fall into. We lose more people because theater is not an assured job or a well-paying job all the time. And that is the reason why actually I feel we lose some of its diversity. But I think so I encourage anybody who's watching to remember why you do it and hold on to that love even if you do something else in between, because it's worth holding on for.
Thank you. Chris is clapping. This is also a podcast form, so people can't always see what you're doing. So that's why I'm narrating your actions. Well, thank you. I think that's great to close out on, that bit of encouragement from you, Val. I know we all know that it can be a tough business, and that sometimes you just have to hold on, like Val said. So thank you. Thank you everybody for being here. Thanks for sharing your journey, all of your thoughts. And everyone will have another episode coming up. So if you like this, subscribe to us, and you'll get notifications for future episodes. So thank you everybody, and have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.